breakthrough, but in a good way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tesla Life number 238. Here we're on the 26th of January, 2022, and we have just gotten through the fourth quarter earnings call for 2021 and roadmap that Tesla has presented. Welcome, everyone, for joining us this evening. We have, as normal, we have Mr. Casey Green joining us from the DC area. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing quite well. It's chilly out.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the FSD 10.9 continues to blow my mind in both directions.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, it's like
one good, not the other one. That's
right. It does like these amazing feats, and then it can't manage to just take a simple turn smoothly. It's like. Or it decides it wants to do some stuff that's not quite legal. It's like, all right. But as Elon said during the call, which we're going to get onto, it is getting better, and the amount of times I have to correct it per mile is going down, even with the old maps.
Very good. Also with us, as normal, Mr. Patrick Connor from the West Coast. How are you today?
Hello, everybody out there in the Tesla Life world, Tesla Nation. How are you doing? It's good to see you. I am excited to talk about Tesla's earnings. 2021, it's going to be a great show. Hey, Casey, speaking of FSD, we had some fog here, and I took it out in the fog, and it did great until I got to the parking lot. And then in the parking lot, it was confused, so I just took over. But yeah, same. It's amazing. It did city streets, stoplights, stop signs, no problem, and then couldn't figure out a parking lot.
My favorite
Patrick,
is it's still trying to play in the snow.
When you say there was a problem in the parking lot and it was confused, did you take over because it just got slow? Because, of course, it couldn't make up its mind?
It could not make up its mind. So there was a spot where it kind of wide off, and it should have gone left, but it started going that way. Then it started going right. Then it went back left. Then at the end, it turned right really hard. And I was like, no. And then yeah.
It's amazing the parking lots it does get. And it's like, well, you get that one, but not this one. And you get speed bumps that look exactly like the one in my house, and you don't get that one.
Well, it's kind of interesting. What Casey said and now what Patrick has said, it's a mixed bag. Like, it's you're kind of surprised that it did so well. And then on the other hand, you get into a situation where you're surprised it did so poorly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously it's a beta. It's going to do these type of things. They're trying to learn from mistakes, but it's kind of interesting as to. I've heard that analogy several times about people saying that it was amazing when it made this particular turn, and then a day later it tried to make a similar turn, not the exact same turn, and they were amazed about how poorly it did that turn. So
my favorite is when it has inconsistent results on something that it does all the time. Like the same spot, same turn, same lighting, same time of day, same
right. And it looks
traffic.
The same to you, but there are subtle differences, and you never know what exactly the AI is keying off of. And yeah, so I mean,
or if it's just rolling the dice sometimes. It's like, today we're going to do it this way because I didn't really know what to do the first time. You just got lucky the first two times.
Yeah, it's almost like they need a like a 1 to 5 star system on a turn or a function, and the driver could go, that's a 5-star right there.
I wish there was a that's good. Like if something surprised you in the good way, you could just say that's good. In addition to the the hey that's bad. They have that's
scary.
Bad.
Yeah. Or when it took you on that bridge, that would be scary, right, Casey?
Yeah, I found another bridge it tried to jump off of on 10.9.
Uh-oh. That's scary.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
Yes.
It never does it with the camera rolling, which is just
no
witnesses.
That's the way you make it drive well. Keep the camera going all the time.
Threaten it. I'm going to turn on the camera. I am going to turn on the camera. Car, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, today, of course, was the earnings call for Q4,
good question.
and it was of course, the final earnings call for the year of 2021. And Elon had indicated he was going to go through a bit of a product roadmap as well. So we're going to go into some depth into this. We've all heard the earnings call, and Patrick's going to take the lead on this and kind of lead us down the road. We'll go in chronological order and comment and discuss as we see fit. Patrick, go ahead.
That sounds good. So, yeah, like Mark said, chronologically, so this is not going through the investor deck. This is just the comments that they made on the call. And so there was Elon Musk, Zachary Kirkhorn, Drew Baglino, and then they said some other executives. And they didn't say who they were. And there was one guy who had an interesting comment that we'll get to that I'm like, who was that? I would like to know who said this. But it wasn't one of the three that they named. So opening comment, Musk said 2021 was a breakthrough year. They had 90% volume in growth. So we know that from last year they had just under 500,000, and this year they had just under a million vehicles. So that's their 90% growth. They nearly doubled. 14% GAAP operating margin. This is the best in the auto industry right now, which is really fascinating to me that they are now doing better than 100-year-old companies that should have refined, gotten their costs worked out, got their production optimized, and be the ones that are. Tesla is still a young company in the grand scheme of things, and yet now the best in the industry by this metric. That's incredible. I'll keep going if you speak up whenever you want to chime in. So,
okay, just a comment on that. It's interesting that was mentioned in the earnings call that Elon said when the chip shortage happened in 2021, everybody scrambled. All their departments tried to work things in place to make it better, to continue the rollout of cars. And as Patrick mentioned, a number of other companies, of course, their amount dropped, where Tesla pushed forward because those other companies, I don't think, scrambled or tried or were unable to try.
Right. They just screamed at their suppliers.
Situation. They just kind of took it and ended up losing market share.
Yeah, the only one that stood a chance was Toyota, and that's just because they actually invented the Toyota production system, and they had also been through a chip failure before, so they knew that when they cut other stuff, they knew not to cut the stuff that they couldn't get back quickly. So they kept ordering chips just like Tesla did. But
and your operating margin.
They did the automotive way. They ordered old chips just like they always do. So.
Yeah, your margins are highly dependent on your volume. If your volume goes down, all those fixed costs have more impact on the products you do deliver.
Yeah, but the good thing about ordering old chips is that, since you're still using old chips, having extra old chips just means you can use them another year.
Right, but also you can't build new capacity for old chips because the factories that are being built tend to almost always be for the latest process.
Which works in Tesla's favor because they don't use old chips.
Right. Yeah. Yes. All right. So the next bullet point was one that I thought was really cool. Mr. Musk said, accumulated profit since the inception of the company is now positive. So as you know, when you start a company, you have a lot of costs and not a lot of income. So every year you're losing money. And the only way you're able to keep going is if investors believe in the company and they're able to fund that, give them the capital they need to keep the doors open. And so we know that Tesla had a year of profitability before joining the S&P 500. But now with this, not only are they profitable, they are historically profitable. For every dollar that they spent, they've now made enough to compensate for that. So Musk's quote was, "This makes us a real company." So they're only now a real company. Before this, they were just a toy, I guess.
Well, there's so many real companies that just lose money year after year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. This one is near and dear for Mark and I. Texas and Berlin have both begun production. Now, I want to pause there and clarify that this is not customer deliveries, which is what our bet is based on. And Musk also made that clear. he said volume production and customer deliveries are what matters, and those are still yet to happen. But they are both making vehicles, which is awesome to see.
So I got a picture response to that.
Yeah. Did you notice he didn't say who started first, though? Like, he didn't say that. He just said together that they've started. So he's still promoting the race.
He is.
Yes, he is.
Although the news about how each one is starting could be, the tiebreaker for you two.
Possibly.
Right. We'll find out.
I'll let you get back to that.
Yeah. Okay, so next, Model Ys from Austin will have the 4680 and a structural battery pack. And they say deliveries will start soon. So that is awesome. We've been wondering about the 4680s and the structural battery pack. And that is happening. I have Kate's on my second screen and he's sharing some cool stuff, so I keep looking the wrong way.
It's the structural battery pack.
I got my camera here.
It's the structural battery pack in Austin.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, they're putting seats on the pack according to the
That's right, because the pack's a structure. You can now place the seats on it and just push it through the under of the car, bolted in place, and you've got a cross member that attaches to the bottom of the car with whatever you require on top of it.
I wonder if you have to fold the carpet back before you insert it, because that looks like a place that would cause them rework.
Yeah, probably that. But just seats in general are a real pain to get into the car. You see the arm going and holding it sideways and turning it when it gets in there. And this just pre-mount them looks really easy when you don't have to go through a door and all this other, have to worry about B-pillars and everything else.
Over to the floor.
And slide it up from the bottom. This is exactly the innovation that makes them a great company. Is like I was saying, there are 100-year-old companies that don't do it that way and haven't done it that way, and they have something that's good enough, and then they just keep doing it. They're not innovative. Okay, so next, new factory locations will be announced towards the end of this year. That is fascinating. Where will they be? So will it be India? Will it be England? South Africa? I don't know. They didn't mention any of those. They just said that they're looking now. They have a ramp up. They have 2 ramp ups to do, so they're not worried about any announcements right now. But towards the end of this year. Will Oklahoma get back in the race? No.
Buffalo.
Canada?
Canada, Oklahoma, why not?
It's interesting that that he came out with that statement that they're definitely examining places, and possibly they could announce something by the end of the year or near the end of the year. So that was also an investor question, which I found kind of funny since he already mentioned it. Why did the question come in with almost the exact same question, which required the same answer? But that's that's how some of these financial institutions are when it comes to their questions. They kind of repeat themselves.
It's not even like they didn't know what the retail questions were. They're published ahead of time. Yeah. And then you can hear which one he picked, so you can say, all right, mark that one off my list. Mark that one off my list. Oh, that one was good. I'm gonna take it because I'm a professional.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so next, chip shortage is still an issue. Supply chain issues could end up being the limiting factor for their production this year. So
not a surprise, is it?
So in the past it's been cells, and this year it might be other things.
Yeah, and they also pointed out several times that the chips were the cause, not the cells. Like, to the point where the reason that their output of storage and solder was lower was because they were taking all the basic chips like time circuits and regulators and putting them in the car instead of into the building stuff.
Right. Yeah. They mentioned this later, that it was boring chips like oscillators and things that were the limiting factor, and so those vehicles took priority, and the Tesla Energy products suffered from that. Yeah,
obviously that's important to them, that they want to roll out cars. They wanted to get to that, they got to a 90%. They probably wanted a little bit higher. But that's something that takes priority. It's taken priority in the past too.
Yes, it has.
When the company was real young and was not making profit at all, in order to get it to a point where it was profitable, they had to push out cars, and they had to push out as many cars as they possibly could. They're over that hump now, but cars still take a large priority of what Tesla does.
You also get more free advertising from cars, and your cars are more perishable than your solar and your storage, because they don't move, they don't change that often. But the cars, there have been times in the past where Tesla would make them obsolete before they arrived, like while they were on the truck. And they might get back to that again, but I think the last time they did it in a big number was when they pulled back the 7-day no questions asked return policy, because they had just obsoleted like half the cars in transit.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's definitely easy to get FOMO if you want the latest and greatest. That's a cycle of, with Tesla, you better be leasing short-term leases.
Yeah, I mean,
so not what I do.
Tesla, you'll never actually have a car if you're waiting for them to settle for a minute, because they don't.
Right. Yes. If you see something that meets your needs, get it. That's our motto here.
It should be. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, next on the list.
Go ahead.
Okay. FSD will be Tesla's most important source of revenue at some point in the future.
Well, I mean, it's really expensive software, so
right.
That's easy.
Yes. Musk said it's going to be a step function in safety. It will be one of the most significant asset increases in history. And he hopes it will happen this year. And he gets into some details later. But
I'll be shocked if it's not, he says.
Yeah, that was... Okay, yeah, since you've let the cat out of the bag. Later on, someone asked about the same topic. And
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. They duplicated themselves so much today.
Yeah, but the context in the second one was slightly different. Okay. So here's the question. Someone asked if Dojo was required to get to level 4, and he said no, it is not needed. They have GPU clusters now. That's getting things done. Dojo would really just help increase the cycle rate. And the more you can iterate, the more you can solve problems, the more you can step down the march of nines. So
and then somebody else asked that same question later, and he gave the same answer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even think I took notes on the second one, because this has already been addressed. So what he said he thinks is he would be shocked if it doesn't happen this year is that FSD beta can drive better than a human. Humans are not great drivers. We're distracted. Sometimes inebriated and other things. And so the real question is, when can FSD be 1,000 times better, 10,000 times better than human? That's the march of nines. And Tesla can see all of the data from FSD beta, how many interventions are happening per mile, and that is improving, and it's continuing to improve. There are improvements to the FSD stack still coming, and that they expect that to continue to improve, so that there's a clear path to this improving this year. And it's exciting to see, as Casey and I were talking about at the beginning of the show. We both have it. It's fun to use.
Oh.
I spotlighted you.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you guys dropped. I was like, oh no, I'm on the show by myself. So there you go.
I was looking at ways to not get the text all over your face while you were talking.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting that that it was presented, I guess, in that way. It is the march of nines. They're going to have to get over time. They're not looking just to be as good as a human. Right. They need to be, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times better than a human. That's what they know regulators are going to require, is that type of data. That's showing.
But if they're biased, paid for regulators and politicians, it's going to be really tough to continue with any sort of biases or lies.
I think it's an uphill battle regardless.
Oh, Casey, it will be.
I think this is going to be the toughest battle they will have.
Yeah, but if it's 2,000 times better than a human, and somebody is saying, "Oh, computer's bad,"
yeah,
it's going to be really tough for them to make that argument.
When you have overwhelming facts on your side, not just slightly better facts on your side.
I think the facts will be contested. I think they will definitely be say, well, these facts come from the company, not from a independent body. The facts come from the calculations of Tesla. I can see all that happening.
Yeah. I watched 40 minutes of YouTube videos, and I think it's horrible.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
I'm wondering if they will have sold it to other people by the time that they're ready to apply to get their own driver's license, essentially, for the cars.
That's fascinating. Yeah,
because it'll be a lot tougher when you've got Tesla, GM, Ford, whoever else buys into this thing, and they're all got their own data plus Tesla's data. It's gonna be harder to argue with, make those arguments.
Well, you know what I can see happening is, and we've seen this in some YouTube videos where a person has taken the car to a driving instructor.
Yeah.
And they've gone out on the road and performed a driving test that a new driver does in that state, and they've provided in some cases a pass for Tesla currently on FSD. So I could see that would be a way to, bypass the, well, you're collecting data and you're construing data and all that. If the car can pass a state run
1,000 driving tests this year,
then and it does it maybe in a fashion where it checks all the boxes and there's no points deducted for any miscalculation of the car driving, then it might be a very easy thing to say, you know what, the computer has got it down pat. It is capable of driving itself.
I'm curious, when Elon says this year for his surprise, if it's not, does that include interacting with road ragers, both people who it comes across and ones that it incites, as well as people who are not actually let's call them some sort of incapacitated. You do come across that a little more frequently than you'd expect.
I don't know. I think his timetable is, as all Elon timetables typically are, it's a little bit on the it's a little bit premature based on what's going on, based on what you and Patrick have experienced to this point. And again, I know that Elon is beyond the simple mistakes and things. He's already looking at the big picture. He's looking from 100,000 feet up, down onto it, and he can see the roadmap of where they're going and how they need to do certain work in certain fields. And I believe that he thinks that a lot of these things are covered, and that all it requires is a little more grinding and getting unique situations mapped out so that it can handle it better in the future. But as an overall problem, I believe Elon believes it's solved.
I don't think it's impossible. It's going to be a Herculean effort to get it there by the end of the year, but I can see it happening. If we look at the way they've been going, I might suggest that by the end of next year. But they're adding more resources to it every day. So
it's true. There was a comment in the chat here that better than a human. Well, what human? There's some that aren't very good. Some are a lower bar than others.
Right. And wasn't there a comment that there's now almost 60,000 FSD drivers?
Yeah.
That are part of the program.
Yeah. And like Mr. YouTube said, I think that if it can compare favorably to teenagers, then we're already past that. Ooh, I got to share the road with experiment sentiment that some of the troglodytes have.
Right.
Well, that's what David has said in the comments. He worries about anti-EV and FSD types that he's seen as just a normal Tesla driver.
Like that fool who tried to run the test car during the video off the road.
Exactly. Exactly.
By the video, I mean, was it the first FSD promo they did?
Right. That stuff is going to happen. That is the way that some people operate out there. The rolling coal thing. It's another thing that happens, even though it shouldn't, but it does. So FSD is going to have to deal with all those different variants.
Yeah, I just saw a video today of a guy in a truck who was shining a bright flashlight in the driver's face next to him, trying to cause him to crash. And it wasn't a Tesla video, but it was just idiots in cars.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Going to work.
There'll be a lot less of that when they can just sit back and
it really
play
is.
on their phones.
Right. Yeah. And if when at the point you're not driving, that's going to be annoying, but it's not going to cause the car to crash. So
Right.
okay.
Well, right now,
All right.
while I still have to pay attention to the road, it still is a little infuriating when somebody cuts you off and goes really slow.
Yeah.
Like
Brake
when there's a lot of
checks you.
space behind you. I understand, like, if there's no other space, but like they specifically get in front of you and then do 20 under what you were doing. It's still
Yeah, you
it's
can't
a little hot
claim
on
they
the
were in a
color.
hurry, that they needed to get in front of you when they slow down. And
Yeah.
But a plus is that FSD is not going to be upset.
right.
Well,
it will
When
not
someone
regulate.
does cut them off,
Mine rides their bumper for a minute before it gives up.
Because it was trained by a human.
Right.
Mine changes lanes a little bit too much. It's like, okay, I know I need to
My
be in the
favorite
left
is it
lane.
changes away from where it needs to go. Hey, lane change coming up in 0.2 miles. Let's get in the opposite lane.
Yeah. It changes lanes too often and too many times in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But anyway, it will improve. Next on the list for 2022, the focus is scaling output. New vehicle introductions. This was an interesting point. In 2021, would have reduced their output. So they were supply chain constrained. And if they would have introduced any new vehicles during that time, then they would have had to go through that ramp up. They would have had to go through that qualification, and that would have absorbed parts that would have stopped vehicles from going out the door. So there were no new vehicles introduced in 2021. And since the supply chain is continuing to be a problem in 2022, there will be no new vehicles coming in 2022. So no CyberTruck, no Roadster, no $25,000 car. Now, the one that he didn't mention this, but what about the semi?
He mentioned it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fill me in. I missed that.
Yeah, he said no semi either. But I wonder if that includes the 15 for Pepsi.
Right.
So because they did debut a photo today of 4 semis together at the Mega Charger.
Right. So if that's a test fleet versus a production fleet, that might because they did say that they're continuing work on all of these. So they're going to continue to refine them to make them better. The engineering and design work will continue. But
so this one on the end, you notice it's got a different size fairing.
I wonder if it's the short range versus the long range.
It doesn't have a fairing on that one. So that's just a short range truck because it doesn't have a highway fairing.
Okay. The better to deliver chips with.
So yeah, that one might be
potato chips
around town. Like from the warehouse to the shipyard versus from LA to New York.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So then the next thing they said that this includes Optimus. So when they said no new product introduction, they included Optimus Subprime, the Tesla bot in that. And then Musk went on to say that Optimus has the potential to become eventually a bigger business than their vehicle business. Because you look at all the places that labor is done and that Optimus could be used, that's a huge market. But that's 2030 kind of time frame, I think, personally.
Yeah, that is far off. Like obviously FSD beta for the car is all encompassing for the engineering department, the software writing group. Like that's number one.
Yes.
The work that's going to be done on the robot is
don't forget the robot needs FSD to function. So
is going to be new work done on it. It's a completely different thing that's going to take a much longer time. That is a long-term project compared to FSD being done, according to Elon, by the end of this year.
But it is a great recruiting tool.
It is. I have a feeling that we won't see any major progress on the robot until they're ready to start either collecting the data for or applying for their driver's license for the car. Because at that point, then they'll have, they won't have as much that they can do. But right now, they they need this other thing to go, especially with Elon saying that's going to be their biggest revenue generator.
Right.
Unless they're
At some point in
revenue.
the future, right? Like
at some point in the future for sure.
It's not. It's.
I'm curious how quickly they.
When he said that FSD, which of course is software, is going to be the biggest revenue jump for Tesla, and maybe in the history of the world. Absolutely. If you've got millions of cars on the road, that overnight you could charge $100,000 per car, and it could turn into a full self-driving vehicle. Yeah, like that's a scale that has been unseen in mankind's history. Being able to jump those type of numbers. But you notice that one of the calls in was, what's the uptake on full self-driving? And he completely said, that's not the question. You know, right. and it's, so we never know what the actual uptake is on FSD for all the cars sold. We don't know what that is. They never want to talk about it. So I believe it's kind of low. Like because they don't want to talk about it at all. And this is not the only question we've heard. In previous earning calls, we've heard this question come up a few times. So it's a big thing. And Elon kept pressing during the call about how this FSD is completely undervalued. People don't understand how this will change the world once it is functioning and operating correctly. He talked about that, I think, 3 times during the call specifically, that this is going to change everything. And people don't realize it, and people don't know it's coming.
Well, not just my own complaints about when it's not there. Other people are starting to realize this as well. They when they get in another car that doesn't have any level of autopilot, and they realize how much they miss it for the boring drives. And for me, it's even worse because it's like it's there and then it's not because whatever reason it doesn't want to work that day, it's going on strike. And it's like, hey, you appreciate me now, don't you? No matter how bad I am. But I'm wondering now, with Elon really gung-ho on this 1 year thing, is he gonna push them to raise the price of the subscription sooner than they might have? Because he said that the only thing they were waiting for on the subscription raising was for it to be ready. And so if he thinks it's ready in a year, is he going to push them for that raise to start getting that revenue? He's already raised the price of the buy it outright price.
Yeah, but it's been a small raise compared to what's coming.
And compared to what they've done in the past as well.
Yeah, like it is not something. It's going to change the paradigm for people buying that option. And people thinking that, I'll just rent it. Well, you know what? The rental price is going up too. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
and the way he pressed on, this is going to be the biggest money maker for Tesla in the future, and people don't realize what an asset this is, and people don't know what's coming. Casey, I think we're all in for a really surprise when he starts charging real money for this thing. Well, especially it's going to be incredible.
When he said that it's going to be cheaper to own it, no matter what he's done to the price, that also gives you a clue about where that subscription price is going.
Where's the subscription going? Yeah.
And when we did the math on it, when it first came out on the subscription, it was like a 5-year payoff, but it was still like after that year 5, it was all gravy. But I imagine he's going to crank that a little bit, like so that the point in a lease even it will be more sense to just buy it.
We'll see. Yeah. Okay, next on the list, Drew Baglino. I have it in my notes here that he's the CTO. I don't think that's his official title, but titles don't mean anything at Tesla, so I'm going to call him the CTO. He took over for JB, so there you go. Cell manufacturing. Cells from suppliers are not their limiting factor for this year, which is a good thing to hear, I guess. Yes. Well, good and bad. There's always something that's limiting them. In this case, it's probably chips.
That's what he says.
Yep, 4680s are now currently being put into vehicles in Austin, as we talked about earlier. And he said he's recently toured the cell factory in Austin, and it is incredible.
Yeah, so that's great to hear. The 4680 concerns are being minimized as days go by. So that's a big plus, that Tesla is going to be able to start shipping those 4680s, a new battery format that can go into the Model Y, their highest, which will be their highest production car. If it's not already, it very soon will be. And they talked about, of course, that being even more profitable than the Model 3, which contributed to, of course, their overall profitability of the company in 2021. So being able to pump out structural packs at Austin and start to ramp up is going to be very good for Tesla. And of course, battery utilization of being able to use both 4680s, 2170s, and 18650s all rolls into vast amounts of vehicles to be produced and sold.
Yeah, and as we saw on some of the folks who did the registration data, because Tesla won't tell us 3 versus Y, the folks that actually went to all the DMVs and other countries' versions of the same thing, and found out the Model Y was, just squeaking on past the Model 3 and everything else. And I expect that to continue now that they've figured out production and have 2 new factories that only make Model Ys coming up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that that's their most profitable vehicle right now. Well, they said more profitable than the 3.
Right.
And
probably the X could be more profitable, but of course lower volume.
Lower volume.
Way low. And they didn't make it for most of the year.
Right. There was, speaking of 4680s, so we can roll this one in now. Near the end, there was a question: will other suppliers make 4680s? And Drew's answer was yes, that they're working with partners and suppliers. They want this to become a standard cell size, that it's very good at driving down costs. They think that it will find other customers, other markets, other use cases that it will be good for. But they did say it's not, they don't expect it to be dominating the market. There are use cases where that's not the best. And in fact, they said that their iron batteries will not be using 4680, and they have no plans to move them to 4680, that they will be other form factors.
Yeah, we saw Panasonic and LG both demonstrate their 4680 cells outside of the Tesla application.
Right.
For the factory,
getting those in other places just makes that a more commodity cell that brings down the prices for everybody using it. So yeah, that it would be silly of them to try to make it a walled garden.
Yeah, and that brings up volume. So if you've got places like Giga Nevada that's producing 2170s, and they've been doing it now for years, their only job is to continue and to increase production on that 2170. Why go in and upset the apple cart and say, okay, now you're going to start making 4680s and slow down production? They're going to use every available battery they can, because they know the volume of their cars is continuing to grow by a factor of this year of 90%. So next year, they're expecting that same type of thing. So you need every available battery you can get in order to keep pushing out cars in those greater volumes.
I mean, when Tesla started, the 18650 was part of the reason they were able to get the price of the Roadster down to nearly affordable. But now, look at this as just a regular battery pack for like a cell phone or whatever. And it's got 8 2170s in it.
Oh, yeah. So 2170s are branching out into other applications. That's awesome.
Right. But if everybody needs your form factor, and then and if their chemistry is anything near what you need, then it's a lot easier to get the volume, which brings your price down. So
Right's law.
It'd be a little weird for them to go back to the walled garden approach after how they got started.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So next on this list was Zachary Kirkhorn, their CFO. He made a few points that I think are worth bringing up here. Regulatory credits are reducing. They are trending lower, and Tesla does not need them for profitability. So, yeah, for all the Q folks out there who are saying, oh, no, they're only profitable because of this, and they'll fail as soon as those are gone. Nah.
And this has been true. Like, we've been watching it in their numbers. The amount of money they've been getting for credits has been dropping, and each time they say, oh, this is what we get without it, and we don't need them, and then, hey, free money, we'll take it.
Yeah, like
Right.
it was fantastic during 2021 that you're getting some gravy. Fantastic. But you know what? The main chunk of the business is being made by the volume of cars. You sell 900,000 plus vehicles at a profit margin, it doesn't matter about regulatory credits. And
Right.
that has been an end of story for some time. And this is just another confirmation that those days are coming to an end, and Tesla really doesn't care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What did they say? 1.5 million run rate?
Yeah. Are you talking about for growth for next year?
1.22 million if they were to use Q4 numbers and not improve at all. Just keep doing that.
Right. Yep. The next thing that the CFO mentioned was that they are continuing to retire debt. So in the past, Tesla was much more of a risk to creditors, and they were not getting great loan rates. And now they can just pay those off and open new lines at better rates if they need it. Yeah, here's the comment you were just asking about. With just Fremont and Shanghai, they expect to have 50% growth. So that's not even counting Austin or Berlin. So they came in at 950,000, and so 50% growth on that. Add another 450, and so it should be. I'm starting to think that Mark's number was better. Mark might be the winner for next year's volume. Depending on how the chip shortage goes, if that's the limiting factor, Casey and I still have a chance.
Yeah.
Depending on the chip shortage, Mark could win.
Yeah, it's
chip shortage and employment.
It's interesting that what kind of ramp are we going to see from Berlin and from Texas? It's going to greatly affect the company's output, as we knew. But this just kind of highlights it, that it's a big factor, and getting those on up to speed. If they can do it like Shanghai did it, we're in for an incredible 2022.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not sure they can, because it seems that China is a well-oiled machine, and that's the only place you could use oil in this story. But it's something that China does extremely well, and has been doing it for a long time in almost all their industries. So it's not a surprise that they were able to do it. Can they duplicate that in Germany and Texas? I would say not quite.
I would say that there's still some lessons learned from China that they can apply to these two factories.
Yep, definitely. Hopefully they can take those lessons and implement them before Texas and Berlin even start.
Yeah, right. And we saw they learned the lessons from the Model 3 in Fremont and applied them immediately to China.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else is on here? This was interesting. He said that he expects in 2022 software to become a profit center for Tesla. Now, when he says software, what was he talking about? We've already discussed FSD. He did later go on and say that as more people start using FSD beta, that he expects the take rate to increase, because as it has more features, more functionality. If your friend with a Tesla gets it and you go for a ride in it, you're going to order it too. That's and as the prices go up, people will be paying more for it. So it's interesting that he expects that this year. That was the part that I found interesting.
And that's not the only software they sell. It's just the most expensive one. They've got
they have
the
games?
auto bidder. They've got games. They've got other features you can add to your car.
Right. Like, will they have an app store where you can buy apps for your Tesla?
Well, I mean, they've got the Ryzen chip coming in there, and he's touched on the App Store before, and he said, they need a certain amount of deployments before it's worth looking into, and I think they're going to hit that this year if they haven't already.
Yeah, right. Like having over 1 million cars on the road already, and this year looking to, possibly 1.5 up to 2 times that. You've got, when does critical mass for an app store appear? It's a number of vehicles, and that number could be 3 million, could be 4, could be 5. They're going to be there within 2 years, maybe 2.5. They're definitely going to be there. So
you don't have to worry about fart apps because they've already got that built in.
Yeah, it's interesting that Tesla is looking at itself that its biggest profitability is going to be software. And when have you ever heard that from a car company?
Never.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. It just does not exist.
It might have looked that way with what they were charging for map updates, though.
Yeah. Okay, so we're 46 minutes in and only halfway through my list, so I'm going to speed it up.
Okay.
The next question was an interesting one. Home products. Do they expect to do anything in that space? And this was an interesting answer. Removing natural gas from homes, from water heating and HVAC would have a big impact. It is in line with their mission. It is something they want to do, but they have no plans to work on it this year. And that's
a new product.
Exactly. And no new products coming this year. They said the things they do in a vehicle are way harder than what it would be to do in a home, where it's a stationary device.
It doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be mobile. You can. Musk talked about how they could package it and make it really pretty, make it connected, make it smart, and it would be far better than anything else that's out there today. But they said if somebody else could do it sooner, please do it. Which, how often do you hear that? We have these great product ideas, but hey, if someone else could do it sooner and better, go for it.
Yeah. And actually, that was part of the earnings call. Is that Musk said ideas are overrated. It's the action or the creation of those ideas that matters. We get lots of ideas. It's just the time and engineering to get some of these done. That is the problem.
Right. I found that fascinating. Having worked in tech for a long time, you have these on-high architects who come up with lots of great ideas. And then I was the guy in the trenches actually releasing products and trying to make things work. And people who write foilware just annoy me. If you're not cranking out code, shut up. So there was a comment here. So how are things organized for research and development? And the answer was, we don't have research centers, labs, or incubators. It's all about improving the products and improving their manufacturability. And then there was it's a 1F and go. That was an interesting comment. I don't know sort of the context there, but okay. Tesla does not place a value on the ideas. The value is on the execution. Ideas are cheap and easy. Taking something to volume production is the hard part. There's no need for a research center to come up with ideas. Was fast.
And that's just a repeat. It's been said over and over where Elon has said specifically, prototypes are easy. Manufacturing is hard.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So a company whose focus is like this, it's not just about the idea. And a lot of people in other companies come up with ideas and then get promoted, and other people get stuck with their ideas that are only half figured out and have to make it work, and don't get the recognition that the idea guy did. And the Tesla's not like that at all. If you can't get it into volume production, if you can't do it affordably, if you can't make it so that it's profitable, it's not worth doing. So yeah, that was I love that culture.
And just introduce David Watts put in a comment about, do we think FSD will be a mandatory part of purchasing a car and not an option in the future?
I think
that is an excellent question, because we don't know, because Tesla talked about how this software is going to be their biggest profitability going forward. That could be, if they had a limiting amount of cars, I could definitely see them saying, you got to buy FSD with the car, otherwise the car is not for sale, because we've sold it anyways. We've sold it to somebody else, and we can make more money if we sold it to somebody else that buys the FSD. So you know what? If you want the car, you got to buy the software. That definitely could be something that could happen.
$25,000 car, $50,000 FSD.
Yep.
And we saw this with Tesla Solar when they were short on Powerwalls. They said you can only get a Powerwall if you're buying solar. that you could not buy them standalone.
Same thing.
So yeah, I could definitely see them bundling this at some point in the future. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Patrick.
No, it's fine. That was right on point. Okay, so next was Dojo. The question was, when is it coming out? And we touched on this, so I'll go quick. It's planned to roll out this summer. The GPU clusters that they're using keep getting better, though. So it's a moving target for Dojo. And Dojo is not a requirement. The team will use whatever gets the job done best. So the Dojo team has to entice the team that's doing the FSD development. And that means that it has to work better. It has to work faster. It has to give them the results they need. And so it's not like, oh, we've designed this and now you have to use it, which is how it might roll out in another company.
For sure.
Because they would say, no, we want to stop paying those GPU clusters. That's not at all how Tesla's doing it. It's like, unless it's better, forget about it. And so success is not guaranteed. Again, this turned into a recruiting. If you want to come and help work on Dojo, it's an awesome project. We need you. And then the last point on here was about Dojo as a service.
I was about to mention that.
That could end up rolling out, but this is their focus right now. It's one of those. We'll think about it later.
It's almost like Dojo is been built for something else that we are not even aware of, because it's interesting that it's not conditional that FSD uses it. It's not conditional that FSD will need it to complete. It does speed up the process in some cases, possibly, but that's not even a sure thing. FSD could complete on its own without the use of Dojo almost entirely, and that seems viable by the Tesla team. So what is Dojo really for? Is it another service?
Optimus will need it for sure, because it's a lot more than what you'll encounter on the road.
Right. Yeah. Training it to walk around in a factory or a warehouse or a house is there's just going to be so much more AI training that's needed. They're going to have an incredibly fast in-house system to do it. So I think that's the real.
Around outside. Because the car can drive outside.
Right. So yeah, Optimus might be able to run down the street at 35 really well, but that's about all it'll be able to do initially.
At 4. He's not allowed to run faster.
Optimus will be a courier. That's it. He carries one box at a time, and it uses the streets.
Optimus is afraid of dogs when he's delivering the mail.
I keep thinking back to that Will Smith movie, I, Robot, with the FedEx robot that shows up at his door. That's what I keep thinking about whenever I think of Optimus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tesla Insurance was next. It's currently offered in 5 states, but California does not allow them to individualize the rate based on the data like the other states do. And so they're going to push California in that direction because they think it's the best thing for the customer. There's no reason that if you're a good driver, you should have to supplement somebody who isn't, and vice versa. So people paying based on their actual performance is the right thing to do. Their goal is to make it so that U.S. Tesla drivers, by the end of this year, 80% of them could opt for Tesla insurance. So that's a huge goal, to go from 5 states to 80% of where their customers are. Now, their customers are not evenly distributed. So I assume that means that the left and right coasts are going to be their primary focus, although they didn't mention which states. And they said if they hit that 80% goal, that their focus is then going to move to Europe. Sorry, Mark, not Canada.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at the safety score that both you guys had to go through in order to get FSD beta, it was not a pleasant thing to use, was it?
No, but the beauty of what Elon described is that you can dial in whatever you want your rate to be. You can just, all right, I'm fine with whatever 85 people pay. Let me get it 85. But if you're ultimate cheapskate, you're going to get that 100, and you'll have that, the ultimate low price. Whether you like driving or not.
You'll be driving like a grandma. Like it's maybe, certainly I can't say that they're going to use that safety score as it is. It's certainly going to evolve. It's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to pull in different types of matrices. But right now it's very limiting into what it is. It along with the software will evolve, and hopefully it will become viable for people to use in that way.
Right, and they did say that they are seeing people improve based on the feedback. So people who have good scores are getting in fewer accidents, fewer crashes, and being able to tell drivers, hey, you take turns a little fast. You might want to slow that down. That's where you could have lost control if it was icy or if there was gravel
Sandy.
or something.
Yeah.
And so, if you get that feedback today and then tomorrow you take a turn a little slower where you might have spun your back end out and then you don't, great.
Yeah. But even people like me that once you're in the beta, you'll or the equivalent whenever you get there, you'll find that you just do less driving, and so the car gives itself a perfect score even though it drives worse than you do.
Yeah, that's true. The system is rigged.
Yes, it encourages.
So you can find yourself in that lowest bracket, and you're only driving in parking lots and on the track in track mode or whatever. But I hope there's pushing track mode will in the future just turn that off while you're
right. Yes.
Why is it this guy everywhere he goes? It's the track.
That's what I'm saying. Use that combined with GPS.
There's no track on the interstate. What?
Right. Speed limit 200. Oh, okay. He must be on the track.
That's okay. He's on track. He's on the track.
All right. Next on the list is the CyberTruck. They asked, what are the limiting factors? They said it's not batteries, but there is still new tech that needs to be worked out there. They want this to be a tech-filled vehicle from the future, but you can't just throw in the kitchen sink because cost. So they're trying to find the right balance of features and cost. And that is something they can, now that it's not going to be released this year, something they can continue to work out this year. There was a question about volume, which I was shocked that they answered. Musk said he expects to eventually get to a rate of about 250,000 vehicles per year. That's their goal for the CyberTruck.
Yep, 250,000 per year. So
that's kind of hoping they showed off.
Doesn't bode well for the 1.3 million orders that are possibly out there. You're talking 5 years. Obviously, that's going to change. That is a floating number. But we mentioned this on the show last week and the week before about the CyberTruck. It's not just the batteries. It's a completely different installation. It's an exoskeleton. It's different materials. It's not aluminum. It's steel. It's folded steel. It's not put together the same way at all. So a lot of learning curves in front of these guys, as well as Patrick mentioned the big thing about it being what's the cost.
Yeah, and then the castings are larger, so you need your mega castings. You can't just use your giga castings. You can't just use your mega castings to get it done.
Right.
Yeah. Probably the next year they'll double it. But that first year, 250 seems like a lot to me to be a brand new product.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's 2023 volume, but we'll see. All right, next on the list, there was a question about their margin, and Zach Kirkhorn gave a list of things that impacted. Model Y capacity increases are their priority because those are more profitable than Model 3. Localizing helps their margin. The new Model S and X rollout is going to help their margin because, as we mentioned earlier, they haven't been shipping those significantly. But then he said that now those are all in the plus category. There's also inflation, supply chain costs have increased, and they're launching 2 factories that, of course, have a cost. So how those all play out over the year is a mixed bag. And, of course, the FSD rollout will continue. And if the take rate increases, that could have a significant impact. So here's some things that help, and here's some wild cards. Good luck. You figure it out. You're the financial analyst.
Anything could happen just based on the wild cards. Yeah. So no real clear road there for sure.
Right. Oh yeah, we covered this one. Megapacks. So the next question was about their stationary energy storage, and the answer I found fascinating. They are going to move all of them to iron-based batteries. And then Musk went off on a side tangent talking about how iron is formed as a star supernovas. True, but irrelevant. But yeah. unless you want to change all these to like supernova, red star, white dwarf, whatever. I don't know. No. Okay, so back off of his tangent. The energy business was shortchanged in 2021 on cells because vehicles took priority, as we talked about. Their energy business will get to terawatt hour at some time. They expect to see 40 to 50% growth this year in 2022, but that growth could be 200 to 300%, but they are constrained. And so 50% growth is all we can expect. And they want to grow it. It is very much in their charter because this helps solar and renewables work better. That helps decarbonize the grid. So they are only slightly de-emphasizing it and want to get it to where they no longer have to de-emphasize it.
Yeah. So a big part of their business, and they keep saying an equal part, if not greater, over time.
Yes.
But in the short term, they're certainly concentrating on the cars.
Well, because the cars keep giving them curveballs. First, you had the Model 3 ramp, and then you had the chip shortage. And before the chip shortage, you had the battery shortage.
But there's certainly an increase if you watch it quarter over quarter. It is growing, and Tesla hasn't mothballed it. All it is just being constrained somewhat by supply.
Yeah, Hockey Day had a good question about the Model 3 castings. I have a feeling that we'll get there because when we look at the refresh S and X, they have a significantly larger portion of them that are cast than before. But as we saw with Sandy starting to take it apart, the front is still piecemeal in the Model S.
Yeah. But that'll that again is supply too, right? How many mega castings do you have? How much can they produce? And why are we going back and fixing the S when we have more Ys to sell? Like it's all assets and how you use those assets.
Yeah, if we use a mega casting on the S, how many Model Ys are we going to lose out on because the front end of the S is finally fixed?
Yeah.
I've got 2 more points.
Go ahead. Good time.
Okay, so FSD attach rate and deferred income. So people that have paid for it, Tesla cannot recognize all of that revenue because they haven't delivered all of what we paid for. So as new features roll out, they can recognize more revenue. So this financial analyst was asking about that, and Musk said, "You're asking the wrong question. You are trying to look in the rearview mirror to determine what the future is going to be, and you need to look out the front windshield." And so he went on about how great FSD is going to be, how it's going to roll out, what that's going to mean for the world. And one thing that I found fascinating, he said, Robotaxi will be cheap and people will use them. And if you had the option between taking door to door or taking public transportation, and they cost the same, or even door to door is less, you're going to pick door to door. Now, the one drawback to this is there could be a lot more traffic on the roads. And all the time when I hear people talking about Robotaxi, they say this is going to mean fewer vehicles on the road. And I don't see it that way because when I drive to work and I park, my car is now off the road. If that were instead a Robotaxi, now it would drive somewhere else with nobody in the vehicle to pick them up. So you increase the number of 0 passenger miles when you have shared vehicles. And there's other reasons that shared vehicles are good, but traffic is not one of them. So everybody who says, "Oh, we're going to be able to shut down half the roads," now you will be able to get rid of parking, but you're going to need those for new lanes.
you would be if everything was a Robotaxi, then they were all shared. You might be able to get rid of some capacity, but yeah, you're right. Like in the short term, it's actually going to increase traffic, but at the same time, it also creates demand for tunnels.
Right. Yes. And that's exactly where the conversation went with his little company that started as a joke, but now might be able to help with this situation that is most likely coming. Yeah. So that was it.
People would pay a premium as well. Like if bus costs $2, I think people would be willing to pay $2.25 to the door-to-door in privacy.
Right. Or what I kind of see happening is if you have, like we have a light rail system here, and there are park and ride stations. So the light rail is great for getting downtown because you bypass all that traffic, and it's a nice environment. And one of the things about Portland is they said that the public transportation works here because it's not just the poor people that are taking it. Right. And I was just like, that's just rude to even say that. But then you start looking at that at other cities, and they have a really crappy public infrastructure. So the only people that use it are the ones that have no choice but to use it, which is sad. That's not how this is not how public transportation should be. I'm used to Portland and I love it. But I get door-to-door service because I drive to the park and ride. I know what time the train's going to be there. It's very punctual. So I arrive just a few minutes before. I've already got my ticket because they have an app, and I just do that. And then I go downtown. I do whatever I need to do there. There's public transportation downtown, or the way that Max weaves through, I can usually get within walking distance of where I need to go, and then do the same on the way home, and it's great. So if you had robotaxis that were used with good public transportation, they could work together really well instead of being one or the other.
Right. And to Hockey Day's question, one of our friends from the other show, Georgia, we constantly talk about what's going on with the buses. And in other cities, for the pandemic, for instance, they shut down their bus routes or curtailed them, and it's not coming back, even when the riders come back. And then when we look at some cities in Florida and all around the world, or the country, I should say, where they've dropped their bus system for Uber vouchers, I think they might, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. Maybe if they get rid of the diesel buses and replace them with plug-ins, that would be good, but I just think they're just going to toss them all together, which is not the right answer.
Yeah, the volume of traffic going up is not a good idea or not a great thing because, of course, rush hour becomes rush day because it's going to be nonstop any hour of the day, going into night until people are sleeping, and then that will cut down on the amount of vehicles on the roads or rides being given. But it's interesting that Elon is pointing towards a future where there may be less cars. And the volume of selling cars isn't going to be the big thing. It's every car is sold with $100,000 worth of software.
Yeah.
And that's going to make the difference for Tesla. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think it's a world that the three of us are going to be involved with all that much. It's tough to go to Patrick and say, sell all your cars and just take ride sharing going forward.
Right.
What I want to do is buy two Model Ys with FSD.
I would be able to convince Patrick or Casey to go along with that.
Because, not personally, but I would understand it. I would actually personally want to get two Model Ys with FSD and sign them up for the fleet exclusively. Because that's just the way.
That's the dream of robotaxi, right? That's what Tesla sold FSD on to all the people that purchased it. Was that if you want in the future, you can be enrolled in the robotaxi fleet, and your car can be on it. You'll get it at a cheaper rate because you bought in at the beginning and helped finance the entire operation. And that's what they were offering.
Right, but if that's profitable, why would they sell it to you instead of just put it out on the street themselves?
That's what I see them doing, is shutting down the retail sales.
Because they had to in the beginning,
right,
to get it going. They had to get people to buy into the dream in order for them to get to the space where that is the norm. So people that got in at it early are like people that got in on the stock early. Same thing. Yeah. They bought into something that was unsure, that may work, that may not work, but they believed in it. They bought in, or they gambled, depending on how you look at it, and that's what happened. So it's looking more and more like not just the stock happened, but this is another stock bet where people are putting down saying, I want the robotaxis. And as Casey mentioned, I'm going to buy two vehicles, hang on to them, get FSD, and they can go into the robo fleet once it happens.
Right, because I want to get them before they stop selling them. Because eventually, like you said, if they're $500,000 a piece and they're running all day long, why is Tesla going to sell them? They're not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like they did with the Model 3 and Y lease. You can't buy them at the end of the lease like you can with the S and the X.
And then Tesla really becomes not a car company because they're just buying them for themselves and they're not selling them. So
that's awesome.
That's
they all come in two colors.
A complete turnaround.
Yeah, we've argued that they're not a car company; they're a technology company that sells cars. But when they actually stop selling cars, but they still make them. Then
Yep,
that's awesome. Okay, so my last one, we've already covered this, but there's a quote in here from Musk that I just have to share. So he says the chip shortage was a lot like the toilet paper shortage at the beginning of COVID. There was no increase in ass wiping at the start of COVID, yet there was a toilet paper shortage. It's very similar with chips.
How true.
That was
How
funny.
True. So, well, Patrick, I want to thank you for that in-depth walkthrough of the earnings call. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for contributing that.
Sure.
We want to, of course, thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up at this point and press that subscribe button if you haven't already. That helps us out in the YouTube algorithm, gets us in front of more eyeballs. We would really appreciate it. And you're supporting the show. It doesn't cost you a dime. Casey, any parting words for us this evening?
Yeah, check out youtube.com/CaseyGreen, KACEYGREEN. I have got some videos I've got in the pipeline for you, and on Sundays we do a chat. So join us, pop in and out like a lot of the folks in the audience right now. They pop in and out, and it's a blast.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Patrick, you're doing all the talking. I gave you a moment to rest. What do you got going on this week?
So you can find me at cardswithcords.net, and as always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. And I can't leave the show without saying my catchphrase here of going. Let's see, I've got
Elon's got one
oil
F
here.
Patrick's got 4.
So yes, I'm looking forward to a future free from fossil fuels.
Bingo.
That's right.
As we all are. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everyone out there. And join with us next week. And together, we will find out what is happening in the Tesla life.
Thank you, Lee Moon.
Good night, everyone.
Test negative.